Psalm 61. This is a psalm written by David at a time where he was really overwhelmed with what was going on in his life. Now, you and I have been in situations that overwhelm us, situations that blow our mind, situations that cause us to be like one that is hitting a wall and there's no solution in sight. Situations that cause us to almost lose our sense of being when all hope is lost. A point that the heart is overflowing with pain, with confusion, lack of direction. Pain hurts. And David was in a time where whatever he was going through was so heavy upon him that he had to cry out to God for help, where mere words were not enough to articulate what he was going through, that he had to resort to crying out from the depths of his being. Some theologians equate the time in his life to a time where he was either being chased by Saul or when he was having issues with Absalom. But one thing is clear, it was not a joyful moment in his life. But at that time, when all hope seems to be lost, when things were very hard and difficult for him, he reminds God, not the details of his prayer. He didn't even go to God with that request, but his prayer at this point in time was to remind God of the many prayers, of the many efforts that he's done in having to seek his face, because he believes beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is able to do it. And may I say this, right now it's not about whether there's God or no God, whether he can do it or not do it. The issue is this: I have made a request, and what I've requested is yet to be done. It hasn't happened. And right now I'm overwhelmed. Right now I'm losing my mind. Right now I don't know what to do, where to go, who to turn to. Friends, family, connections have turned me down, and I need help. God, will you remember me? These were his prayers in Psalm 61. And he cries to God. I love verse 2. In verse 2 he says, I've gone to the ends of the earth. In other words, he sought the face of God. It wasn't about just being in one particular place, but he's gone everywhere, seeking his face. I mean, when you talk about somebody putting due diligence into seeking God's face, he's done it. And now at this point, he now prays a prayer of one that says, look, when my heart is overwhelmed, God, would you do one thing for me? Would you take me to a place that is higher than myself? And he defines that place by calling it a rock. This is mind-blowing. We're talking about the fact that I'm still requesting things of you, God, and you haven't done it. And I'm just saying, Lord, don't forget. But look, even though it hasn't happened and it's causing my heart to give up, it's causing my heart to want to give in, it's causing my unanswered prayer, is really causing me to get to a place where I am about to lose it. God, please, at that moment, take me to a place that is just higher than where I am. And this place is defined by being called a rock. We know who the rock is. That is Jesus. That is our God. He's a solid rock that is never moved by the tides of life, by the tides of situation, by the tides of circumstances. He's a solid rock. And on him we stand. And he says, look, I know I'm already in God. I know I'm already in him. But right now, as I'm going through whatever I may be going through, I just desire that you take me to a higher place in you. You know, many times situations pull us away from God. Many times it even causes us to deny his existence. Many times it causes us to compromise our stand. It causes us to compromise those things that we stand and believe in. It causes us to begin to pay attention to negative words and gossips of man. Words that could not do a man any good. Situations cause us to want to even back out, back down, where we begin to run away from our calling and our destiny in life just because certain things are not going our way. They're not happening the way we want it to happen. David at this time says, Lord, take me to a higher place, to a higher level of seeking your face, of being closer to you. Take me to the place that is higher than I. Verse 3, for you have been my shelter and a strong tower from the enemy. In other words, he says, look, God, what I am asking is still not done yet. And when I'm about to give up, take me to a high place. And I know that because my prayers are not answered does not mean you've not been there. He reminds God of what he's done in the past. He says, you have been my shelter. You have been my protector. You have been my guide. You've been the one that delivered me from the enemy. May I just say to you today, as you're going through whatever you're going through, remember that at that moment when it seems that all hope is lost, that there was a God that answered your prayer. There was a God that showed up for you back then. Back then when you did not know what to do. Back then when you did not have the comprehension of the next step to take. He came and made a way for you. See, don't let the sin of Israel be your sin. They forgot God after the miracles that occurred. After they had crossed the Red Sea and got to a place where they needed food or water, and because of their current need, they forgot the God that had been with them, that led them out of Egypt, out of captivity. Don't let that sin be your sin. That's why David reminds himself and says, look, I know you, God, have been my protector, my guide. May I encourage you today. May I challenge you today to remember that there's a God that watches over you. Do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death? I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. See, it's not a question of whether we will go through difficult times or not. No, it's certain. It's certain that we will have hardship. It's certain our heart will almost want to give in or give out. But one thing is also for sure, that God is with us. I just want to let you know he loves you. He cares for you. He's by your side. Both his rod and his staff are there to comfort, to lead, and to guide you. And whatever has a beginning has an end. The valley has its end. You will see the end to this tunnel and come out in flying colors. May God bless you. May he keep you. May you remain strong in him. And may his prayer, David's prayer, be your prayer. That God take you to a high place. That when things want to make you stop doing the things that you ought to do for God, that at that point in time, it even becomes a catalyst to do more for God. Go in the strength of God. The Lord bless you. In Jesus' name.